The desk decides which tool to reach for using a script Daniel wrote, a dozen categories, 40 branches deep. Priya asks for a 13th category, and Daniel can't add it without risking the other 40 branches. So he proposes the fashionable fix: rip out the branches and let an agent work it out. And Priya asks the question that decides this episode: if it chooses for itself, how do I explain what it did? Freeze. Daniel's diagnosis is right and so is Priya's worry, so the answer has to satisfy both. Here is how the exam asks it. A desk sorts tickets into a dozen categories, each needing its own handling. The logic is a long chain of handwritten conditionals that's hard to extend. New categories arrive often, and the support leads have to explain why a ticket went where it did, which approach best fits. The item parks in the corner, and the exam has a vocabulary for this argument. Call it 4 more of your 53, and every stop left is worth another 4. Here's the whole episode in one picture, one line you read, left to right. 3 positions, and the bracket over the last 2 is agentic systems, which covers both things they're arguing about. Daniel's chain slides into the left panel, because a workflow is the model and the tools running through paths you wrote. In an agent, on the right, the model directs its own process and tool use and keeps control of how it does the task. That's the whole distinction, and it turns on who picks the next step. The first position is Anthropy's own line: find the simplest solution possible and only add complexity when needed. Which includes nothing agentic at all, because for plenty of jobs, one good call with examples is enough. The captions are the decision rule. Workflows give predictability and consistency on well-defined tasks. Agents are better where you need flexibility and model-driven decisions at scale. Every move right buys one and spends the other, trading latency and cost for performance, so move right only when the one before won't do. Priya still has to read back why a ticket went where it did, so the fix stays in the left panel, where a workflow takes 5 named shapes. Prompt chaining is a fixed sequence where each step works on the output of the one before, with an optional check between steps. That check is a gate code rather than another model call, deciding whether the chain carries on. It trades a little latency for accuracy by making each step an easier job. Routing reads the input, works out what kind it is, and hands it to the branch built for that kind. The payoff is separation of concerns. Each branch gets its own prompt, not one prompt good at everything. Parallelization runs calls at the same time and combines results in code in 2 flavors. One flavor breaks a task into independent pieces run together. The other runs the same task several times for a spread. Orchestrator workers has a central model break the task up, hand pieces to workers, and stitch them back. The difference from parallelization is the testable one. The subtasks aren't decided in advance, they're worked out from the input. Evaluator Optimizer runs 2 calls in a loop, one producing an answer and one grading it with what to fix. It earns its keep when you have clear criteria for good, like the desk's tone guide, and another pass measurably improves things. 2 of those let a model decide at runtime. Orchestrator workers picks the pieces, evaluator optimizer picks when to stop looping. Both are still workflows. The model picks what the work is, your code picks where it goes, and where it goes is the next step. Daniel wanted to hand the whole desk to an agent, so cross the bracket. What he was proposing is smaller than the word suggests. An agent is a model using tools in a loop, deciding what to do next from what came back last time. It's episode 12's loop, keyed on the field on screen. The stop reason, tool use means go round again, and turn means no tool call came back, and the loop is done. What changed is who picks the next step. Here, the model does, not your code. The fit test is about your problem, not the technology. If code you wrote picks the next step, you are on the left. If you can't predict how many steps it takes or hard code a path, that's the right panel earning its place, and a ticket isn't that. The bill is real, higher cost and errors that compound because a wrong step early feeds every step after, which is Priya's worry stated honestly. and why the docs ask you to show the planning steps, not only the answer. Daniel's next idea is everyone's one agent per category, and you don't get a new picture, you get this panel copied. The exams published skill list names this manager and supervisor hierarchies, word for word. Manager, supervisor, and lead agent are three names for one role, so a STEM can't lose you with another. The name printed there is orchestrator subagent, a lead agent spawning and managing specialized subagents. The fourth name is orchestrator, and it's a trap because it also names a workflow back on the left. Here is the collision, settled by the same question as everything else. The workflow card on the left hands subtasks to worker calls, and your code decides what runs next. The multi-agent one hands work to whole agents, each picking its own next step with its own tools and context. Pull one subagent forward because the isolation is what lets Priya be told what it was asked and what it answered. It gets its own context window, its own instructions, tools, and permissions. Only the prompt you hand it crosses on the way in, so anything it needs goes in there. Only its final message comes back, so the middle stays inside it and the parent's context stays clean. What never crosses is the parent's conversation, its tool results, and its system prompt. The project instruction file does cross Claude.md and Claude Code passes it down by default. An SDK app passes it only when setting sources includes the project settings, and that's the tested qualifier. Here is the beat this episode exists for, and it runs against everything you'll read this year. The guidance is to start with one agent, because more usually isn't better. Several agents reliably beat one in exactly three situations, worth memorizing. The first is context pollution, when a context fills with material that drags the work down, and the fresh window you saw is the cure. The second is work that genuinely runs in parallel, and the third is specialists picking tools better. The premium is always there. Inside those three, you get something for it, and Daniel's 12 agents aren't in any of them. And the line worth keeping. Teams who built elaborate multi-agent systems often got there with better prompting on one. Whatever replaces Daniel's chain, he isn't writing the loop himself, and the blueprint names three things he'd build it on. Lang graph is a graph you draw for long-running stateful agents, mixing hard-coded steps with model-decided ones. Strands agents is AWS is open source kit, model-driven, shipping ready-made multi-agent patterns. Pydantic AI is a typed agent loop whose output is validated against a schema you declare. The strip spans both panels, and none of the three changes which side you are on. Back to Daniel's 40 branches. Option 1. Rip out the conditionals and let an autonomous agent pick its own steps per ticket. Option 2. A routing workflow, one classifier in front and one prompt per category. Option 3. A larger model handling all 12 categories in one carefully written prompt. Option 4. Parallelization, running all 12 handlers and picking the best output. Name the decision, what runs, then work the options one at a time against the picture on screen. Option 1 dies twice, both on screen. It's Daniel's proposal from the cold open, and Priya killed it in the next breath. It's the one move across the bracket, and a worn out chain isn't proof the whole left side failed. Sorting a ticket into one of a dozen known categories is a well-defined task, and the stem wants a reason you can read back. The bigger model dies on rule 1, the constraint rule. The answer is the mechanism built for the stem's constraint, not a knob. One big prompt is the card outside the bracket, and the desk outgrew it at 40 branches. Running everything in parallel dies on a documented fact, and it's the good distractor because it's a real pattern. Parallelization is independent pieces run together or the same job repeated for a spread, and neither is sorting one ticket to one specialist. What survives is routing named for this exact shape. Classify, then hand off to something specialized still inside the left panel. And notice what it gives Priya, because this is the cold open's actual fix. Adding a category means adding one branch with its own prompt, and it can't break the other 12 because nothing was wired to it. That's what separation of concerns buys. 40 coupled conditions became 12 independent ones behind a classifier you can read. What the 13th category taught you is one sentence: who picks the next step decides which side of the bracket you are on. A workflow runs the paths you wrote. An agent directs its own process. Several agents is orchestrator, subagent, and it's all agentic systems. 5 named workflows on the left: prompt chaining, routing, parallelization as sectioning or voting, orchestrator workers, and evaluator optimizer. On the right, a model in a tool loop that ends when it answers with no tool call, earning its cost only when you can't predict the steps. Start with the simplest thing that works, and with one agent, several win only on context pollution, real parallelism, or better tool picking. The counter moves to 45 of 53, and what runs is one sliver short. Then you decide to build the thing and find out that the loop is the easy part.